Okay, hi guys, welcome to Falkirk Community Trust Trust Us podcast. It's Women and Girls in Sport Week. I'm Jen Cairns from the Active Schools team here at Falkirk Community Trust, and I'm your host today. We have managed to ditch the boys today. There is no boys on our call, and it's all about female empowerment. It's a bit of girl power today. We have some fantastic guests. I'm super excited about this one today. Really great to hear some different opinions about sport and activity for girls. So we'll just do a wee wave round the windows. So Miss Watson, who's a primary teacher here in Falkirk. Hi, Miss Watson.
Hi.
Cup of tea in hand.
Cup of tea, of course, and of course I was told to bring biscuits, so I went for the little, the little Christmas leaf cookies. They're in stores near you, so.
And we have Tilly O'Donnell from Larba High School. Hi, Tilly.
Hi.
How you doing?
I went for just some squash, and I've picked myself a gold bar.
Oh, what a fantastic choice. Great. And we also have Ailsa Wyllie on the call from Sport Scotland. Hi, Ailsa.
Hi, everyone. Hope you're all well. So, yep, got coffee in hand, a wee decaf for this time of night. And I've gone for a really boring choice now that I've seen the two other ones there, but we've just got a wee Biscoff, the wee Lotus.
Oh, yes. As I said, a biscuit tells you a lot about a person. I've actually went for a Jaffa cake, so I went controversial. Is it a biscuit? Is it a cake? Throwing it out there. I know it's been on the political chats as well, but you know what? My biscuit of choice, Jaffa cake. So, guys, as I said, it's Women and Girls in Sports Week, which is super exciting, celebrating the empowerment of girls, taking part, being physically active. And I just wanted to know a wee bit more about what your guys' background was in sport. Have you been involved with it from a young age? How are you still involved with it? You might not be involved, but you might just be interested in it. So we're going to go round the windows because I could talk all day about sport. I have one of the best jobs in the world at Active Schools. So Miss Watson, would you like to kick us off first, a wee bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. So I am a primary teacher in Falkirk, have been for the last 7.5 years now. Before that was West Lothian for grown up and things. In terms of sport, as a youngster, really not engaged in it at all. I was the kind of kid that just didn't really want to make a scene or want to bring any sort of limelight towards me. So when sport was something that was offered, it was something that I wasn't really as interested in. Dabbled in a few things as a kid for hobby styles, but not ever anything competitive or club level. As a teacher though, took on the role of the basketball coach when our basketball coach left for the school. Didn't ever really know what I was doing with it, but just went for it. Actually ended up taking the kids through the Falkirk League run by Active Schools, and then we actually, through the Jump To It programme, took the kids all the way to the Emirates Arena to play. Kind of did a lot around that, a lot around the kind of school community with basketball, got them their kits, like really kind of raising the profile of competitive sport through basketball. I've also been a part of like the sports council and things as well, which has done an awful lot of like fundraising, awareness again of sport. I personally have grown a love for basketball myself through teaching the club at school, and I'm a massive self-proclaimed Falkirk Fury fan. Love spending my Friday evenings watching a Fury game, and actually it's been really nice to try and encourage our families as well to go and take part in that on a Friday evening. And through that as well, there was then, it was last year I think, the opportunity to do the pickup basketball for women, so a women's only kind of, it says it in the name, you just go along, play basketball, get to know other women, like play basketball. A lot of people had associations with Furies, like parents and things. And so through school and through the community, I feel like my passion for sports just grown tremendously. So really passionate about kind of taking on new challenges and taking it through the school as well as much as possible.
Oh, fantastic. You'll be super excited when we can actually get back indoors playing basketball then. I know right now it just feels like we're not doing anything, but it's good to know that you guys you're still excited about it. So I'm going to jump down to Tilly, so you can tell us a wee bit about yourself, Tilly.
So I've been a competitive swimmer since about the age of 11. I'm 17 now, so it's been a wee while. I'm with Falkirk Otters, and I've been training with them all through my competitive career. But 3 years ago, I started volunteering at the Trice camps at run at Larbert High School, and I found a real love for coaching. Through my coaching that I was able to start leading swim clubs for junior pupils at Larbert High School, and I've progressed on to now to be a qualified lifeguard and swim teacher. I still train. I'm not as competitive as I used to be, but I still absolutely have the same love for swimming that I've always had. And I think as an older teenager in sport, I really feel passionate about being a role model to younger girls who sort of get to the point where they're not progressing the way they want to be, and they sort of feel like that's them and they want to give up. And I like to promote that there's lots of different journeys within sport, and my coaching and my teaching is just as valid as going to, you know, British and Olympic level.
Absolutely. I think that's really important as well, to showcase that you can be involved in that level of sport, but then actually get involved in all the different levels to make sure you're continuing on in sport. That's fantastic to hear. I'm sure a lot of people will like to know that your career in that sport has still continued as well, even if you're not competing at a national or international level. That's fantastic. And last but certainly not least, Ailsa, fire away. Let us know a wee bit about your background.
Yep, so sport has been a massive part of my life from quite a young age. I was probably very much into participating in sport through my school, and one of these people that just put their hand up to take part in any sport. You know, when you were younger, I don't know what it was about it. I just loved anything competitive, anything running about. And then when I was kind of in primary 6, primary 7, started playing hockey, and that was the sport that I then kind of progressed in. I didn't really select hockey as the sport, you know, until I was certainly in secondary school, and it was probably more S2, S3 before I realised there was like clubs and stuff that you could go to and play more hockey, and that's, you know, the path that I then kind of went down. So played competitively school and club all through secondary school, and was fortunate enough to be selected onto the kind of international pathway from under 16s then right through the age groups and then into senior. So a huge chunk of my life, I played senior hockey for the Scotland women's team for about 11 years, and just juggled that with finishing school, university, and then starting my job. And my first role was a sports development officer with Stirling Council. So yeah, I mean, sport is heavily embroiled in my whole adult life and a huge part of my childhood growing up. And I don't know, I have 3 brothers, all kind of footballers and very sporty themselves, so it could have been that, you know, natural environment at home where we were always kind of competing. I was always, you know, running behind them, wanting to be part of what they were playing, and they never really embraced that, I have to say, but I was always thereabouts collecting footballs and trying to get involved with them. And that's, you know, I just, as I say, loved all sport. And then hockey became such a massive part of my life. I'm so grateful for what I got to experience through sport, that the whole kind of being part of that team, and, you know, we grew up together really. If you look back on it now, there was kind of a group of us that played hockey right the way through our kind of senior career together. And a lot of us then retired after the 2014 Glasgow Games, which again being a home games, and to finish on that was an absolute, you know, joy thing to do and be part of. So yeah, sport's given me so much. Then I, from a professional career point of view, started as a sports development officer, had the McLaren cluster in Stirling, which is quite a rural cluster. Learned so much just around opportunities and lack of opportunities that some children, young people faced, that I probably hadn't been so aware of through my kind of schooling and participation in sport. And then that, I guess, you get this love for trying to help and make sure everyone's got equal opportunities to take part. And that's been a massive part of my career then, and pathway into Sport Scotland, and being involved in what I'm involved in now, which is mostly the kind of schools and education programme and children, young people in sport projects.
You've literally went through the programme that you're now working in as well, Ailsa, which I think must be a really cool feeling to actually now be promoting that back to all your grassroots level. And this is my wee geeky sporty bit, that Ailsa came to visit one of my schools when I first started as an active schools coordinator out in the Denny cluster. And because I used to do hockey back in the West Coast, I was starstruck back then. And I always say to my kids that I have the coolest job because I get to meet some of the coolest people. And that's probably really embarrassing to you, Ailsa, but I felt like you had your national kit on, and the kids had never played hockey in that school and had never experienced it, and you came in to be a role model and talk to them about it, and it was just such a cool thing for me to be involved in as well. And now I actually get to work alongside you, Ailsa, which is even cooler. So it's just one big family within Sports Scotland. I think we all kind of start off and we all kind of work our way background in it, and it's a fantastic place to be and be involved in, the national governing body of sport. I mean, that leads me really nicely on to talking about the kind of stats side of things with girls taking part in sport. We've all got a varied background in sport and activity and taking part. When we look at the national statistics of girls participating, and over the last year, 46% female participation across Scotland. So nationally, there is a lot of girls taking part. Here in Falkirk, we are slightly above the trend here in Falkirk, and it's quite a nice thing to shout about. We have sat about 48%, up to 51% since 2014. So our numbers are growing, and we're having female participation up to 51% in the Falkirk area. We are seeing a drop-off from, and Miss Watson, you'll probably see this as well as Tilly in a high school, a drop-off from P7 in S1 and S3 and S4 of girls taking part. And then that's obviously why active schools are here. We want to target these girls taking part. Within the Falkirk area, we have a lot of girls taking part. But I just wanted to know from kind of your opinions, guys, and from your jobs and from your experiences, that if Ailsa, if you don't mind kind of hitting us off with that from a national perspective and probably from a club perspective about girls' participation levels, can you give us a wee bit of kind of background there?
Yeah, I think you've covered that really well, and the stats there that you've got the 46%, that is the kind of national figure for women's participation. When we then start breaking it down and looking into where we know the kind of hotspots are, so the teenage drop-off is not a new topic. I mean, that's something that we've spoken about nationally for a number of years now, and the trend still sticks. So that kind of 13 to 15 age group, we definitely see a reduction. And within that, if you kind of look at how many girls are meeting the physical activity recommendations, then that figure is 30% compared to 44% of boys of that age group meeting the current recommendations. So, you know, we know that that's still a hot spot. I think what you mentioned there around looking at that trend, and it's now fallen or starting a bit younger. And I'm sure, you know, in your primary school, you'll see the trends from that P7 to S1 that we are now kind of seeing, that the girls' awareness of themselves is probably a really key factor in why that drop-off is starting earlier, and the way that culture is around them and what they're surrounded by in terms of social media and looking at others to kind of verify what they should be doing with themselves or taking part in. And that trend is now dropping from an earlier age. So as you're well aware, Jen, you know, we've had a lot of programmes that we've aimed at that kind of secondary school, and that's still something that we'll continue to do, and why we have Active Girls Day and Women and Girls in Sport Week, because we know that there's still a lot more work. And I think the more that we learn about it, and we learn from other countries who also have the same trends, it's not just unique to Scotland here, this is global where we see these issues, is that there's a few kind of key things that are happening in girls' lives at that time, but also their experiences of why they might not be taking part. And Tilly, you could definitely probably bring this to life in terms of what you experience and see from your peers within school. But we know that the barriers from all of the research that's been done, it still sticks around that experiences of PE. And, you know, from all of our own PE experiences, I'm sure we can say that things have changed massively, and PE teachers on the whole are so much more experienced in looking out for the kind of triggers and the girls that are repeatedly not bringing kit and not wanting to take part. but I still think there's more that we could do within that, and what are we offering, and is that offer attractive to what teenage girls want to participate in school. I've kind of mentioned it, the self-esteem, body confidence and the peer influence is massive at that age. Always has been and always will be, and I think now more than ever that's just exacerbated in terms of looking around at social media and who they're looking to, and what people out there are posting or looking like, or doctoring pictures, and that all has a massive bearing now on that kind of self-esteem and body confidence of young people. And then there's also the kind of wider structural environmental issues that come into it as well, around facilities, variety of sports that's on offer, the lack of female visible role models in media, and it's been well, you know, publicised and spoken about in these women and girl forums, that if you look at kind of the back pages or the feeds from sports newspapers and whatnot, it is very heavily male dominated, and you're getting maybe 5% female mentions compared to the male. So there's still a lot of work to be done, and I think, you know, it's really exciting because every year for Active Girls Day has just grown and grown, and I see so much emphasis and thought and buy-in from our partners and our network, and I think we have to tackle this together. This isn't one organisation that can make a difference. It's not a governing body that's going to do something that's going to change and transform. This is schools working together with their Active Schools coordinators, with their clubs, and it's, you know, everyone being aware and speaking about the barriers and trying to help overcome that. Sorry, I could speak about this all day.
No, the passion is coming out. I'm loving it. I think what we'll do is we'll go from national, we'll go to high school, and then we'll work our way back to primary school, because it's been a long time since a couple of us have been at primary school and high school. So work our way back. Tilly, in terms of girls taking part, what's high school like now for girls taking part in sport and activity?
I think, sort of upsettingly, it's the same trends that you guys are talking about, that you've seen for years in your positions and your careers and the things that you've experienced. I think the social factors that have always been there are still there. The sort of the need to be cool and do what everybody else is doing, I think, is always there, and unfortunately sport never seems to fall into one of those categories of what is cool to be doing. And I think the new sort of social media aspect of it definitely plays heavily and probably reduces even further people's want to get involved in sport. You know, there's all these pressures to look a certain way and act a certain way, but there's only specific ways that you should be doing it, and there's criticism of girls who really enjoy sport and really enjoy PE and want to get involved in it, and that's really, it's a shame definitely to see amongst peers, and I think it's something that you have to stick out, and that's the last thing you want to do when you're sort of a early teen, is to stick out for doing the thing that you enjoy or doing the thing that you want to do. It's something that I've, in a different way, I've tried to tackle the sort of stigmas and barriers. Just a year ago, a group of me and a few other girls in my year formed a group called Lady Business, and we've been trying to tackle the issue of period poverty. And we found recently we've been doing some work for Active Girls Day within Larbar High School. We've produced our own podcast about managing your period with sport and sort of educating a bit better on how you can tackle those things. But I think the stigmas and the barriers exist for both those subjects, and it's just a thing you have to break down. But you're totally right in saying that it's not one body that's going to be able to do that. It has to be implementing positive role models within individual schools, you know, being told that these things are fine by teachers and adults is all fine, but physically seeing your own peers getting involved with things is definitely something that helps.
Absolutely. I think that if there was more groups when I was at high school, like yours, Tilly, set up to allow girls to even just talk about it or just know that it's going on, because it was always something that was hidden away. And I was one that never wanted to get out of PE. I always wanted to be, I was probably most of the time the only girl that took part in PE in my classes at high school. And I never wanted an excuse. Even if I was injured, I still wouldn't have an excuse to get out of it. So it's good to know that things are getting put in place and people are there to support girls taking part. And again, like you said, the kind of barriers and the stigma to these things as well, getting addressed publicly as well. And you guys have obviously got your Twitter page and things like that going on as well. So if we think about early childhood experiences, again, that's going way back into the 80s at primary school for me. But Miss Watson, for primary school pupils, particularly girls taking part, tell us a wee bit about what you think the importance of an early childhood experience in sport and physical activity can be.
I mean, the benefits of sport, I mean, you could sit here and list that all night, couldn't you? The social, emotional, physical, mental, all of the different benefits. I mean, the curriculum spells it out within the health and well-being kind of category of the curriculum. It spells out like all the benefits of that kind of overall well-being of the individual. I mean, we talk about Falkirk and the diversity in Falkirk in all different aspects is huge. And, you know, like in my experience, actually, even in terms of diversity of having children who've come from different countries to live in Scotland, and they bring a whole new level of sport knowledge and you know, experience. And I think in Falkirk, the biggest thing is diversity. And I think within sport, it kind of pulls on the fact that everyone is different, everyone has different experiences, there are different, you know, avenues that you can go down, you can compete, you can coach, you can, and I think having those as options from a really young age, and those as factors that kids are aware of, is really important. Because I know that in my own experience, and I think at high school especially, it was very much felt by me that if you were taking part in sport, you had to be good, you had to be the best of the best, and if you weren't the best, just don't bother. And in my case, I didn't bother. I was the kid that came up with all the excuses not to take part in PE, like forge my own signature and things, because it was, and for all the different reasons, like, you know, talking about the period poverty, the stigma, all of that. I'm that kid that went through that, and it's alarming now to look back and think that as a child, as a young person, that's what still children are going through. But I do think that what we do in the primary schools now, especially linking in with active schools so heavily, is giving kids the different experiences, whether it's the different sports, the different kind of opportunities within sport. Like, for example, active schools offers young leaders training. So from primary, like 5, 6, 7, we're encouraging children to be the coaches, to be the facilitators of sport, so they don't have to take on that role of, I just need to win the race and that's it. That's what sport is. It's even when I took my kids to the basketball league that active schools set up in Falkirk, it was the opportunities that the high school pupils were getting to become referees. Like, I just didn't know that was a thing. Like, that was incredible that these kids had obviously got a passion for basketball and they enjoyed playing it, but they were so much more interested in the refereeing side of things. And teaching kids that from a really early age, it just lets them come into the sport and sport as a whole from all the different paths. We know kids come from different experiences. They have their whole, you know, background, they have their whole likes, dislikes, as simply as that. And I think for us to offer the range at such a young age is really important, because it allows them to have that broader kind of outlook and understanding. And I think hopefully then the more that starts to happen at a young age in primary school, when they do go to high school, they can understand why people are doing taking part in different aspects of sport, if that makes sense. So I think definitely just the plethora of opportunity that kids have, especially I know that as a school in Falkirk, it's incredible. And I've seen firsthand girls who've gone from not really taking part really at all to kind of coming along to a club just to give it a go, having that kind of attitude of, I'll see if I like it or not, I don't have to commit, and actually thriving and you know, having that kind of rush of you know, the adrenaline that comes with winning a game, or the adrenaline that comes with like shooting a basket, or going and taking part, representing your school. Handing over a kit with a school badge on it to a child is incredible, and I think it's the most powerful thing, and it's opportunities at such a young age, and kind of having that outlook, I think, is just so important. And you know, hopefully, like I definitely see at a primary school level, the amount of input and hard work, it is a lot of hard work that goes into it to give these kids everything, but hopefully these kids are going to come through then the high school system with a bit of a better outlook, you know, and hopefully carry on. But I totally agree with Tilly and Ailsa. I think it needs to be multi-agency for sure. It can't just be education, it can't just be active schools, it can't just be the pupils having their own intrinsic drive for it. It needs to be nurtured across the board.
Fantastic. Surprised you didn't have your big gold Sport Scotland flag up behind you, Miss Watson, because
I didn't know if it was quite fit or not.
I know your school are a current gold school.
We're a gold school.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that's down to the hard work and dedication from your staff as well, as getting the pupils involved all the way through the school.
Yeah, and I'd kind of, on the back of that, I would echo as well, we're talking about like role models and things. I like in a school where the majority of primary teachers are female, and it is that kind of statistic across the board, the majority of primary school teachers are female. Having empowered our teachers at our school over the past few years with the skills, with the confidence, has drastically changed not only the teachers' own perception of teaching PE and offering clubs, but the kids. That, like, again, it's kind of the kids seeing staff. We kind of fundraised and we got money we got grants, and we got the staff some VPS hoodies, these ones, and we. All the staff now, if they're teaching PE outside or inside, or if they're taking a class somewhere to do with like activity, they wear their hoodie, and the kids love that. Like, you know, and the teacher doesn't need to, you know, they don't need to be like running laps of the place or anything, but just that joining in and that taking part, that positive role model we're talking about, I think is just so important, especially for the younger pupils. And again, arguably not just for the girls, like the boys, I think their outlook on female teachers, I think, has improved when they see teachers taking part and just showing that interest and showing that level of engagement, even just wearing a hoodie. I mean, they're kids. They're, you know, it doesn't need to be like you shift the world or anything. They just need to know you care, I think. And I think definitely the females in our school, again, variety of experiences with sports. Some have done it their whole life. Some are like me, where they come to it later on, and the confidence and the ethos that's been created in our school has dramatically, like, kind of changed and had its positive impact on the kids, most importantly.
Brilliant. So we have about 8.5 minutes left, and I don't want to get cut off because we could just sit here and talk about this all day, guys. But I mean, we've talked about it a couple of times about the barriers that females can face taking part in sport and physical activity, and this can be at all levels. And there's lots of different barriers, but it's not to say that these barriers have to exist all the time, and it's not to say that they can't be broken down, because we are here to empower and we are here to create these opportunities. So my last question to you guys is, what do you think can be done to empower the next generation of females to keep active, to keep involved, to even just get involved as well? So what do you think you could say to the next generation of females to empower them and to break down these barriers and ensure we have this girl power going all the way through sport, from grassroots level to our national and international athletes? So I'm going to jump down to Tilly this time, and from a high school pupil perspective, what do you think we could say to them to empower them?
I would totally agree with Miss Watson that role models within your school in both a teacher and pupil form make a massive difference. So seeing not only older pupils, but pupils of all ages participating in sports and participating in a range of sports, you know, with girls, the sort of sports that you see, the the most participation in are the ones that are allowed socially, are your classic sort of like dancing and gymnastics and those things, and those are great sports and great things to be involved in, but they're not for everyone. And I think being pushed into those sort of sports that are acceptable can even be even more detrimental to a self-esteem, feeling that, well, if I'm not good at this thing, then I'm not going to try at all because it was, you know, embarrassing enough to not be good at this thing or not look like everybody else who I was in the class with. So I think seeing a variety of different types of girls and women in different types of sports makes a massive difference, and talking openly about the things that come with being a woman in sport. So I think we, you know, myself, I'm passionate about periods. I think that needs to be normalised, our ability to talk about that, and that obviously plays a massive role within sport. You know, it's one of the classic excuses that's used to get out of sport. I think if we have a more open dialogue about something like that, then we can share our experiences and share tips as people with experience and sort of make a more open conversation with girls. Other things like even silly things like getting sweaty. I know people used to get like ripped the mick out of for getting sweaty while doing sports. Like it's something that it's something that doesn't happen. I just think all these things just need to be normalized, and we can't place them by making these things not acceptable for girls to do. I think you just push them further out of the sport, and having those role models and examples in teachers and other staff members and pupils themselves, definitely from the get-go, you know, young people and young girls can see that they can go for whatever it is that they want to go for.
I'm going to jump to Ailsa this time as well. And Ailsa, what do you think we can do to empower girls more in sport?
So first off, I think you should have had Tilly at the end, because what she said was amazing and answers that for all of us.
Oh no, Tilly, what have you done?
I have to follow what Tilly said, but she touched on it there. I mean, I think from the work that I've been involved in, from what we hear from our partners through the Fit for Girls solutions workshops, I mean, number one is talking. So, you know, that is about everyone talking to each other, understanding, and most importantly, seeking and listening to the girls about where they are, what they're experiencing, and, you know, what their ideas are about how they would like to take part, because there's not one thing here that we can all put on that's suddenly going to transform, you know, every teenage girl who's inactive or not wanting to take part just now, and they'll be like, yeah, that's the thing that's been missing. Because I think we're all aware in all the jobs that we're doing, you know, we do try and offer that huge variety to encourage as many people as possible to take part. But sometimes it's not, you know, just the one thing that's going to make a difference, and it's not the variety they're seeking. Sometimes it is that they just want people to understand where they're coming from and why they might not be able to take part in anything, regardless of how many different opportunities and variety of sports and activities that you put on for them. So I think that kind of what we chunk it up as in terms of a modular workshop is consultation, but it's around talking, and that might be the teacher-girl relationship. So that kind of consultation piece married up with the relationships that are formed, and relationships are key. And I think in teenage girls, you know, that is the absolute kind of crunch point of where they're at in the world, and, you know, what, seeing the world through their eyes, because they'll be struggling or could be struggling with relationships with their peers. They might not have a comfortable teacher pupil relationship. It might be family pressures. It could be around that kind of female male relationship that's happening within that year group. And until you start to understand and unpick that, and sometimes, you know, that's the changing factor. A PE teacher reaches out, speaks to the girls, you know, it's slow. They form a relationship. The girls start to trust and have someone they can speak to. And slowly but surely they're taking part, they're turning up, they're bringing kit. And it might only be for that one PE teacher because that's who they've got the relationship with and that's who they've built trust up. But it's a start for them to get to appreciate physical activity and sport. And this is not about making, you know, Olympians and people being on a performance pathway or going on to do, you know, club sport. This is about people or school-aged young people being able to experience it in a positive environment and find their own path and love. And it might be that they go to performance, it might be that they go in club and community sport and go on that pathway, but it might just be that, you know, they have found something that they enjoy doing. And I think that lifelong participation is so key and important, that as early as possible we want people to have the confidence to take part in something, and find something for them to be able to take part in. And looking at the younger age groups, I kind of think if you've enjoyed sport at like P6, P7, and you've got something in you that I guess confidence to do something, you might hit your S2, S3 and you might drop out a wee bit because there's so much else going on. But I think then as you get older, you pick it back up, and there's so many examples of that where people are saying, you know, I came back into sport, you know, maybe it's when I've left school or early 20s, because there was something there they enjoyed. They've gone through a few years where they weren't able to take part for whatever reason and the barriers going on, and then they've come back in, and you just think you've missed out on some crucial years where this could have been part of your life. And that's, you know, everyone's role and responsibility to try and break the barriers down. But yeah, I think if I had to say one thing to do is talk. Everyone try and speak more to each other.
It is. It's just that impact you can make on one person can completely change the relationship you have with sport, with activity, with the school, with the environment that you're in. And I think, again, I think you've hit it in the head there, is talking. Talking is a big thing, and I think we perhaps maybe don't do enough of it. And like you said, Tilly, is that open conversation, is that getting rid of these stigmas. I mean, they will exist, and they exist in very many different environments, but talking about it, putting it out there, putting it out in the open, I think is definitely one of the best bits of advice that I've certainly had from people that I've worked with and staff, and my role models and things as well, as talk. Miss Watson, you get to empower the tiny humans, so you get to speak to them and start from their kind of start of the sporting career. You never know, you might have some Glasgow Rocks players that you've coached and passed on to high school. And what would you say?
Open.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you say to empower the primary school age, because they're obviously quite impressionable, they are looking up to people, and this is sometimes their first ever experiences of sport. So what do you think we could do more in primary school to empower them or break down any barriers that you see?
I mean, I think you've said the perfect word. They are very impressionable, and I think, you know, we've talked a wee bit about the role model of teachers in our school in particular, like as a gold school sport, who, you know, there has been a shift in the way teachers take on that role of encouraging and motivating and being that kind of that factor that could really change a kid's approach to sport. I know that I think it's more like a cultural thing these days now within teaching, that we teach a lot about, you know, famous failures, and we teach a lot of diversity, different, you know, people who succeed in life who maybe haven't come from the best of backgrounds. You know, it might be celebrities, it might be, you know, famous people in our world and history. And I think for primary, I think teaching and exposing children to a range of people who, you know, it just takes that small detail for them to go, that they're like me, that's like me. Or, you know, it might be something so simple like they've got the same colour of hair, but if you're given a child, a successful woman in this case, from whichever background it's from whichever experience in life, whichever experience in sport, and if you're kind of offering out those examples, real life examples to children, they appreciate a real life example. Like they can read right through when you make things up, but to give them something that they can hook on to, and to have that relatability and that impressionable kind of aspect is massive, especially for the younger children. And I think as well, I'm very much all for like the kind of the self-care and self-love. I think we talked kind of briefly with Tilly about teenagers and how they're in a world of criticism constantly, and kind of always judging each other and themselves, I think, as well, a lot these days. And I think women and girls just need to give themselves a bit of a break. I think we need to teach that from a young age. I think they need to advocate for themselves. I think we need to teach them to love themselves and to be proud of themselves, no matter what their achievements are, no matter how small they are. It's like we're saying, all the different avenues of sport, but really teaching that, we're talking about role models, but I think that, we're sitting here, I'm sitting with like 3 extremely inspiring women right now, and actually I would hope that you would be your own role model. And I think it is kind of that, trying to instill that within kids, and it's looking up to other people, looking up to peers, or these famous people who've done really well, but look at yourself, give yourself that kind of break, and I think leave that pressure. And I think the minute kids start to do that to themselves, it then starts to be that they give others around them a break. I mean, we know when it comes to things like peer pressure and bullying and things, that often it is that the person who's bullying perhaps actually has more kind of self-insecurity issues with their own being. So I think if we tackle those kind of issues as well, and get kids and women and young girls to love themselves first and then love others, I think that's very, very important to try and instill from a really young age. Because I think wait until they're mid-teens, when all the emotions and hormones and things are a part to play as well, is it's too late. And I think we need to, it's the same as anything, it's the same, literacy, numeracy, it's all about early intervention, and for health and well-being it should be the exact same, I think.
Fantastic, thank you very much. What a note to finish on. We're all so inspirational. That's exactly what I was going to say. Actually, Miss Watson, you kind of stole my line that I had written down there.
Sorry.
No, ladies, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming out and doing this week, and really opening up about females in sport, and opening up about your relationship with sport and physical activity and your experiences. It's been absolutely fantastic, and I actually stole this one from the boys and said, I'm taking this, no boys allowed, we're doing this one. And from Active Schools, I want to say a massive thank you for everything that you guys do out there in sport, everything that you do to inspire females and males. I'm sure you're inspiring a lot of males out there as well. So, but for Women and Girls in Sport Week, and Friday finishes off with Active Girls Day, so hopefully we'll get to see lots more that's going on with Active Girls Day as well, and we'll make sure that we get plenty of shout outs to you guys as well. So Ailsa Wyllie from Sport Scotland, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Miss Watson from Victoria Primary School, thank you very much for coming along.
Thank you.
And Tilly O'Donnell from Larbert High School, thank you, and keep inspiring those pupils there as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Take care.